Hello, this is Mr. Hanna and welcome to What the Format. Today we're going to go over a parent function. Okay, parent function. Parent function is the most basic form of a function. Back in the day when you went to a car dealership to buy a car, they had a base model. Okay, it was that car, but there was missing things, like maybe it didn't even have a radio, no air conditioning. Maybe it didn't have power steering or power windows or power locks. Those things were extras, right? Well, parent function has no extras. It's just the function. So I don't like the term parent function because to me, I think basic, base. So I term this a base function. Okay, it's where your starting point is. Everything builds off of that. You can have other things or not, but you have to have at least this one thing to be a function. In the case of a linear function, your linear function, the base function, is f of x equals x. You have to have x. You don't have anything multiplying by it. You don't have to have anything adding or subtracting it. Now, most linear functions do, but you don't have to. Now, to add to that, then, our linear function is f of x equals mx plus b. Okay? Your m now is the slope. Well, what's your slope in your base function or parent function? Well, it's 1, because this is 1x, 1 times x, okay? Now this then is your y-intercept. Y-intercept is where you cross the y-axis. Now that's important because lines go forever in both directions, so we want the center of the line, and guess where the center of every line is located? On the y-axis. Now this isn't true for other base functions, but for a linear base function, or any linear function, the center of the line is on the y-axis. That's why we want the y-intercept. Well, in this case, okay, notice your slope there is 1, and your y-intercept is 0. See, you're not adding anything to it. Basically, just whatever your x is, your y is the same thing. Okay, that's your base linear function, and then when you add your bells and whistles to it, that is your linear function. Now, let's graph one just to show an example, because a lot of times that's what you're asked to do. So if I have f of x equals negative 3x plus 4, okay, what I'm going to do here is I am going to make an xy table. Wait, I don't need to do that with a linear function. You can, but you don't have to. What I'd like to do is practice it. XY table, okay? Hopefully in some of the other videos you've watched of mine, you're seeing that the XY table is one thing you can always do with a function to graph it. Now, in a lines function, this is very particular to a line. The center is point, always start at x equals 0, okay? Then we go negative 1, negative 2, 1, 2. You can use those 5 points for every linear function to graph it on an XY table. That's not true necessarily of your other functions, but for a linear function, it is, okay? So, now, the other way you can graph this is to use recognize that this is your y-intercept, 4. Well, what does that mean? Well, that's where you cross the y-axis. So I'm crossing the y-axis at plus 4. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my y-intercept. Well, how does that work over here, Mr. Hanna? We'll plug 0 in. What's negative 3 times 0? 0. What's 0 plus 4? 4. That's how you get your center point or your y-intercept. So there's 2 ways to do that. Okay? Now if you're having trouble seeing that, practice plugging it in and seeing. You got negative 3 times 0 plus 4. See? There's your 0 plus 4. There's your 4. There's your practice evaluating functions, which I covered in another video. But you'll see then that's why I did a video on it. This doesn't go away. You're going to evaluate functions a lot. Starting in Algebra 1 all the way through calculus, there's a whole lot of evaluating functions. And boy, do the functions get ugly sometimes, and there's a lot of steps. So you want to practice, get this down now. Okay? Now what about this slope thing? Negative 3. Well, remember your slope is equal to your rise over your run. Okay? The rise is your numerator. The run is your denominator. Now I know what you're thinking, Mr. Hanna, this doesn't have a denominator. Yes, it does. Every integer can be made a fraction by putting it over 1, like that. Okay, because -3 divided by 1 is -3. Now, a lot of them times you'll have a fraction there. So they give you your numerator denominator like 2/3. 2 would be your numerator, that's your rise. 3 would be your denominator, okay, 2/3, right? There's your numerator, there's your denominator. That's your rise, that's your run. Well, what does that mean? Well, your rise is how much you go up. This is your up. Your run is your over. Or easier to think of as it's left or right. Left or right, okay? So then obviously you can think of this as up or what? Down. So your rise is your up or down, your run is your over or left or right. I'll let you decide how you want to think about that. But see, that's another point here with math. I'm showing you a lot of things, you have to make sense of it for yourself. Now if it doesn't make sense, that's where you can ask for help from either your teacher or you go talk to your parents and ask, but you have to find a way that makes sense, all these things together, and then you have to put the steps in order. Okay, it's like kind of like putting on your socks and shoes. You put your shoes on and then try to put your socks on, it's not going to work. You did things out of order. Same thing in a math problem. You need to do things in order. So here, our rise is 3. Now what I like to do, if possible, is always go up. That way, if my slope is negative, once I've gone up, I go left. If it's positive, I go right. So in this case, -3, so I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and then since it's negative, I go left 1. Okay? Now what, Mr. Hanna, what if I want to go down? Okay, I go down 3. That's your negative. Only one of these is negative. So once you've done your negative, the other one has to be positive. In this case, I did my positive first, so then I had to do my negative. Down 3 is your negative. So now your 1 is positive. But if you see that, you'll see that the points line up. Now, if you put the point over here, okay, and you sketch this line out, you'll notice that it is up to the right. Yes? Up to the right is a positive slope. Sorry. Up to the right is a positive slope. Up to the left is a negative slope. So if you have a negative slope and you see yourself going up to the right, that means you put this point wrong. That means you went over the wrong direction. Yes? So all you do is then you just switch it. So if I'd gone over here, oh, I'm on the wrong side, then you flip it over. Same thing here. If you'd gone this way, because you were used to going left for negative, you just switch the point over. And then when you connect the dots, you can see, okay, the dots line up, which they're supposed to, and my line is up to the left. So that's something you can practice. Now, if you don't like using the slope like that, and you're confused by this, use your points. Plug in 1, okay, like here, okay? -3 times 1 plus 4. What's -3 times 1? -3 plus 4. What is that? 1. 1. Look, there's your point, 1, 1. And once you have 2 points, that's enough for a line. I usually like to do 3 because it helps me make my line straighter. And some of you might notice this when you're trying to draw a straight line and there's only 2 points close together. Sometimes it's easy to get your line to bend like that. We don't want a bendy line. Okay? 3 points though, it's harder to bend the line. See, these 2 points, the line's easy to bend, but if I have a 3rd point, it's much easier to get the line straight. Okay? But again, that's a personal decision. That's something that you have to start learning to do, knowing when you're making a decision. You don't decide the problem itself, but how you attack the problem, you're going to want to try to find a way that works for how you think. That's what this channel is meant to do. Okay? I'm trying to give you tools that you know how to do things. And then when you come into problems, you have to say, okay, I saw Mr. Hanna do it. I saw how he did it. I don't like that Mr. Hanna did it this way. Guess what? That's fine. If you don't like this way I did it, and there's another way you like better, change it. That's part of finding your personal algorithm. Remember, I did a video on algorithms, a set of steps you use to solve any task or complete any task. Okay? From making a bowl of cereal to brushing your teeth to putting on your socks and shoes. You perform tasks every day, and you figured out orders that you do those tasks in that make sense to you. Well, do the same thing with your math problems. If I do a step you don't like, see if you can, there's a better way for you to do it, a different step. But you still have to follow the rules. You can't just change it because, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to add there. The rule says add, you have to add. So now you just figure out how to work that in so it makes sense to you. Anyway, hopefully this helped. This is your basic linear function. This is it with all the bells and whistles, how to graph a linear function, including the table and the shortcuts. Hopefully that helped. Now again, the good news, this is a video. You can rewind it and watch it again, and you can then make your own and practice it. and see if you get those right. Okay? And good news with graphing lines, you can always, after you practice it, go on Google and say graph this line, and it'll graph it for you. Okay? Go to Desmos, plug the function in your thing into Desmos graphing calculator. Okay? Desmos.com. I'm a big believer in Desmos. DESMOS. Okay? Desmos.com. And it has your graphing calculator. If you hit your graphing calculator, plug that in, it'll check, graph your line, you can check, and now you can practice. It'll tell you what the answer is, and you can see if you can get it. And once you get a rhythm and you figure out how to do it, now you can graph any line out there. This also works for the other functions. So remember Desmos.com. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This has been Mr. Hanna with What the Format. Happy mathing.